This video is sponsored by Squarespace.
Dragonflight is officially over from a story sense. The dragon aspects are all back together and empowered by Azeroth. Firak is defeated and Belemeth is growing nicely in the Dragon Isles. Malfurion is back and... Malfurion. You know, Malfurion with the wings on his arms. Sleepy chap. Tyranda's husband. Yeah, Malfurion. He's back and we have new leaders for the newly housed Gilneans, the Tree Folk and the Green Folk. The Planeteers have started to hear whispers from Azeroth and we are on a one-way ticket to the World Soul Saga. A trio of expansions we can all be very confident is going to be 6 years of absolute bangers for the following reasons. 1. Chris Metzner is back running narrative. 3. Xalatath exists. And G, WoW finally has a cool, interesting, and motivated long-term antagonist in the form of Iridikron. General opinion is, this is a baddie being done right. But why exactly is that? What makes Iridikron a cut above the usual WoW fare and worthy of carrying the next 3 expansions on his stony, scaly back? Is he really any better than the most hated WoW antagonist of all time, Zovaal the Jailer? Well, there's only one way to find out. Ladies and gentlemen, join us as we pit Stony Boy against Nipple King in an attempt to highlight why Iridikron is such a good bad guy and worthy of being the World Soul Saga's main antagonist. Or maybe not, because, you know, in a one-on-one, anything can happen. Zovaal might surprise us. Who knows? Who knows? It's Iridikron versus the Jailer. Who will win? Okay, go, 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 go. Let's start at the very beginning. How are each of these 2 expansion baddies introduced to us? Well, technically, the first time we saw the Jailer was in the Shadowlands features trailer, where he appears as this shadowy form behind Sylvanas, and it was spooky and mysterious and intriguing, but also a relief, because his appearance here came not only as a tease, but as a promise that finally we as players would be let into what on earth had been going on with Sylvanas during BFA, where she had gone from sensible new war chief to bloodthirsty war crime general to brutal dictator to strangely powerful and magically empowered outcast, clearly working with a greater force with a secret super objective we could only guess at. And if you were hoping to get any of that explained in the expansion it all happened in, then friend, you were bum out of luck, because we got nothing, which was not incredibly satisfying from an audience point of view in my opinion. But that's BFA problems, because here is the answer. Blizzard's grand plan that they've definitely planned out in advance and definitely know the ending for, and you can tell just how well planned the Jailer is, because the next time we see him, he's got a completely different design, which is fine by itself. Blizzard changed their minds and decided topless prison tattoo Jailer looked better than Ice King Jailer, and that's fine. He does look cool in this high res sizzle reel that came out the week before Shadowlands released. And you know what? Let's not be dicks about this. The first time we see him in game, proper, is pretty good too. The Friendship is Magic gang is whisked away by death angels, and we descend into literal hell with the Ebon Blade to rescue them. And then, as we wade through the denizens of literal hell, we eventually see the evil driving force behind not just this expansion, but technically the last one as well, stood atop a ridge, the armies of hell at his back, throwing a beloved, or at least reasonably popular for those who have heard of him, lore character to his doom. And I know we all hate the opening Moor scenario these days, because we had to do it on all our alts, but try to think back to your first time. This is cool. This is an absolutely baller introduction to a baddie. This is a solid 9 out of 10 were it not for one little detail. His first voice line.
Pitiful mortal.
A new baddie, a clean slate, countless possibilities, and endless potential to form this guy into a modern antagonist different from anything else we've ever seen before. And no shit, the first thing he says is... in the exact same deep gravelly baddie voice that we got in Wrath, Cataclysm, Mists, Warlords, and BFA. And you gotta say... that's some lame-ass shit right there, isn't it? Maybe you think I'm going over the top, and I probably am, but when I heard this opening line, my eyes rolled back so far into my head that I could see my own brain, including the bit completely ruined by years of listening to uninspired video game baddies. 0 out of 10! Otherwise, though, I do like this introduction. He's big, he's bad, he's gathering an army, and if we're still no closer to working out why the whole BFA thing happened, the action of these scenes at least sets up the immediate story that plays out in the leveling campaign. Honestly, it's solid. Okay, fine, 7 out of 10. Compared to Iridikron, who doesn't appear at the beginning of his expansion at all. All of the advertising for the expansion and the whole first act of that story is focused on Razageth until the action climaxes in a fight with Stormgirl at the end of the Vault of Incarnates raid, where despite our apparent victory, the Primal Incarnates are released. And I have to say, I love this. I love how we've just been chasing one badass elemental dragon capable of beating Alexstrasza down for the entire patch, finally defeating her at the end of the raid, only for the game to be like, whoa, well done, you beat the crazy baddie dragon. Now there are 3 of them. And I love the way that they introduce themselves too, because it is so to the point. No mucking around here. We know exactly what these guys' motivations are. Viranoth is distraught at the death of her sister. Firak is promising vengeance on us. And Iridikron, whose voice is twice as deep and boomy and Warcrafty as the other 2.
All who betrayed dragonkind to the Titans will face our wrath.
Gives us a handy bulletproof super objective summary sheet. He hates the Titans. Everyone who helps them, gone get it. In just a few seconds, we have already got a fair read on what makes these guys tick, as well as the fact that huge stone one who would have just eaten us straight up had Khadgar not ported us out is obviously the biggest and baddest of them all. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, but Tally, you just went off on the Jailer for having the standard growly wow baddie voice. Are you seriously going to let Iridikron off the hook when he has the exact same thing going on? And that is a fair question, honestly, and the answer is, yeah, I am actually. There are a whole bunch of reasons we'll be discussing in just a moment as to how Aridididi avoids a lot of the usual wow baddie cliches, but I think the main difference between this baddie intro and the Jailer's is the Jailer doesn't care about us. The first time we see him, he's discarding Bane, just like Blizz. The fact that we are in his home, tearing shit up, is not more important to him than whatever his big plan is. It's only later during our escape that he suddenly becomes interested in Anduin, but only in so much as he can be used as part of that plan. Whereas these 3, they already hate us. We, the player, are explicitly identified as the people they hold responsible and who they are going to make pay first. Presumably there is also a grand plan they will put into motion, but it's instantly personal between us before any of that. It's a difference of immediacy and involvement, and I think it's great. So even though there's nothing necessarily wrong with the Jailer's introduction, I think in this case, Iridikron just edges it and wins round 1. If you are going to have a major antagonist lording it up over the player for an expansion or more, then their personality is going to be a major contributing factor in how effective they are. Some of my favourite baddies in recent times have been Emmett Selk in Shadowbringers, because of his relatable but ultimately heinous objectives, but also because of the complicated relationship he had to the characters. He would occasionally help you even though he was obviously bad news, and he was fun to have around even though you knew you were blatantly going to have to kill him because of all the reality destroying and stuff. You love to hate him, as opposed to Fandaniel, who I just hate, period. Fandaniel is the worst. Seriously, f*** off Fandaniel. I also love Ketheric Thorm from Baldur's Gate 3, because he's just so sad. And the Emperor too, who is such a nuanced and manipulative gaslighter. I can guarantee you there are loads of people watching this right now who are like, wait, the Emperor's not a bad guy. But I assure you, and I'm sorry to tell you this, but he definitely is. There are basically no main antagonists like this in WoW. Even the Zoth, who totally could and probably should have been Emperor levels of manipulative, ended up as just another boomy voice promising annihilation. And the Jailer is another painfully bland example of that formula. Like, what is the Jailer's personality? I know his backstory. He was imprisoned by his fellow Eternal Ones for betraying them, spent the next billion years planning his escape so that he could pick up his halted plan where he left off. But as for what he's like as a person, we just don't see it. He is presumably fairly convincing when he wants to be, because he has persuaded Helya and Anathrius and Sylvanas to join him despite what must be their better judgment. But we see none of that charm or bargaining in the game at all. Every time he interacts with anyone, he's just ordering them about. And even if we could understand why they're all willing to throw their lot in with him, in theory, the game does a terrible job of actually showing us. I guess you could say that he has a major superiority complex. He's pretty disloyal and he's very, very patient. But these are standard boring antagonist characteristics 101. And obviously the reason we don't learn anything about Zovaal the bloke is because Shadowlands isn't very interested in exploring that. A decision was made in Shadowlands to focus on the relationship between Anduin and Sylvanas, and the scenes we get between those two are great. I will fight anyone on this. The interactions between Anduin and Sylvanas and the impact they have on each other is the best thing about the Shadowlands narrative, and these cinematics are brilliant. But that doesn't help Zovaal, who remains basically an emotionless egg with nipples and bad guy for real though written on it. 2 out of 10. And half of that score is purely for the moment of his actual death, where he actually looks scared and vulnerable for the first time in flashback. And it's like, yo, why didn't we see any of this before? This is pretty interesting. Iridikron, thankfully, is a whole different bag of rocks. There are 2 things about him that I think make him a cut above not just the Jailer, but nearly every other major WoW antagonist ever, personality-wise. The first is that he's initially one of 3. The first handful of times that we see Iridikron, he is with Virinoth and Firak, which instantly gives him a level of interaction with other characters that we rarely see. And this isn't like Zovaal and Sylvanas interactions, where he's always like,
do this thing you fundamentally stand against for that reason we've never really gone into.
And we're like, oh, what do you even see in him, Queen? No, this is the primal incarnates interacting as equals and friends, and it's fun to watch their different personalities shine through. Virinoth is stoic and idealistic, Firak is the hilariously gleeful chaos goblin, and Iridikron is, in many ways, the most passionate and single-minded. Yes, he sounds and feels a lot like WoW big bads of the past, but he has the other 2 to act as foils and keep his scenes from becoming one note. And true, those 3 are no longer hanging out, but Blizz do appear to be setting up a tag team with everyone's favorite Naifu Xal'atath for the World Soul Saga, and that would be awesome. Xali Baby being all sassy and voidy, playing off Iridikron's grumpy obsessive determination, has potential to be a great dynamic, and I stan it. I stan it, but I don't ship it, obviously, because the only person Xal'atath is allowed to be shipped with is me. Sorry, I don't make the rules. Actually, I did kind of make that rule, but it's an important rule. The other big difference, the most important difference, is his attitude towards the player. Not only does he hate us personally, but unlike literally any other big bad, he's actually wary of us.
Do not underestimate them, Firak. Our sister's overconfidence was her downfall.
It sounds stupid, but when you think about it, no one from Illidan through Arthas, Deathwing, Garrosh, Grom, the Legion, N'Zoth, or the Jailer has ever seriously entertained the idea that we might beat them. We are either pitiful mortals not to be fussed with, or pawns in their great game. Iridikron is the only one ever who is like, oh, these guys? They're nails. We're gonna have to be careful around these badass mofos. Look what happened to Razageth. And for that alone, he easily wins this round over nipples. A super important part of any major baddie is their motivations for doing what they're doing. To go back to Emmett Selk, his motivations were tragically relatable. He wanted to bring back his reality and his people by destroying 12 other realities, including our own. The Joker in The Dark Knight, at his core, just wants to prove Batman wrong and basically causes chaos and mayhem just because he wants to win an argument about morality. And you know, we're all on the internet, we've all been there. But a baddie's motivation doesn't have to be relatable to be effective. Insert, but I don't want to cure cancer, I want to turn people into dinosaurs meme here. Personally, I am a huge fan of the upfront clarity of Iridikron's motivations. He just really hates the Titans, and not without good reason. They have been incredibly pushy and sus towards Dragonkind, empowering the Incarnate's brood in the egg to make them Titany, not just without consent, but after promising that they wouldn't. Pretty scummy. The Titans definitely suck for how they treated the Incarnates. So for him, his fight against the Titans is really for what he sees as the betrayal of his entire kind by evil gods, and he really does just want to wipe them out, destroying anyone who gets in his way and allying with anyone who is willing to help. Understandable, clear, simple. 8 out of 10, rising to 9 out of 10 because it's the Titans who he wants to kill, and I'm actually kind of on board. Zovaal has motivation too, one that he is willing to betray his brothers and sisters for, one that he planned his escape over 1 billion years just so he could continue fighting for it, one that he considers to be the most important thing facing the entire universe. And of course that is yeah, we don't know. We know that he wants to be Grand Ruler of the entire cosmos because
a cosmos divided will not survive. What is to come?
but we never find out what is to come is, do we? So honestly, it's kind of hard to care, isn't it? Kind of hard to get invested. It's kind of shit, to be honest. 1 out of 10, another round to Iridikron.
Hello? Hello? Oh, hey, we're back! We're back in the saddle and we are ready and raring to go in 2024. Patches, roadmaps, expansions. I am so excited for what lies ahead this year, not least of all our continuing partnership with Squarespace, who are sponsoring this video, among others. You might remember that back in December, I took a big step into the unknown and actually gave the Squarespace shop integration a try. And ladies and gents, I have not been disappointed. Look how smooth and shiny these shop pages are. Look at that beautiful product customization and the whizzy custom mockups. Look how insanely easy it is to use the page editor to completely change the setup of your product pages. And look, there's even this option in the Printful settings to change your selling location to worldwide after accidentally setting it to UK only for a whole month. Whoops. But that's not even what I want to talk about today. Today, I am so very proud to share with you that I have added one more shop item. I had a look through Printful's extensive product catalog again and chose a mug, of all things. And I didn't even bother giving it a new design, but that's because I wanted to show you how easy it is to use the upload library and templates to make even more stuff, obviously. Printful even tells you it's syncing with Squarespace, and boom, it's live on the site and ready to go. How cool is that? Only thing left to do now is buy it, I guess? You know what I'm gonna tell you to do now. Head to squarespace.com/taliesinevitell or use code taliesinevitell, where you can build your own extremely original shop and even save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. That's squarespace.com/taliesinevitell. Tally, you'll never guess what's going on the shop next.
What?
A white mug. A mug. White mug.
What?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Arguably, the most important part of a big bad is their plan, especially in a video game, because it's the baddie's plan and fighting against it that shapes your actions and gameplay the most. This is, of course, different from objective and motivation. Objective is what a character wants to achieve, motivation is why they want to achieve it, and their plan is how they intend to go about reaching their objective. Now, obviously, Zovaal, he's a plan man. Much memeage was made in the community during Shadowlands about the Jailer's 9,000 IQ plan, how he'd been laying the foundations down for thousands of years, how every move legendary lore characters ever made was playing into his hands by doing exactly what he expected of them, as the famous Reddit post goes, which we animated in a previous video. Okay, let's see how galaxy-brained this man had to be. Picture this. You are the Jailer, and you have been imprisoned by your college improv team. You have to convince one of the people that banished you to super hell to now be your friend. You know how prisoners casually convince the warden to start working for them? Something like that. Next, you have to convince the warden to start the best spy industry ever to be created. Simple plan, baba bing, baba boom. Now, use that spy system to convince beings of pure chaos and void to start spewing onto random planets. Then, use one of them to corrupt a being of pure justice. All easy stuff. This is where the Jailer's genius shines through. Have your army, now working for the corrupted Titan, be strong enough to level entire galaxies except this one random planet that has all the stuff on for some reason. Now keep this Titan, who doesn't know he's working for you, just out of reach of his goal for millennia. The fun part begins. Use the spies to convince one of the Titan guy's allies to create a zombie guy with the express purpose of having a hat and killing and then resurrecting one random elf that will become important later. Make sure the humans win so the bad guys come back later, then have hat guy die so elf lady predictably tries to unalive herself so that she can see big bald man. Make a deal she can't refuse, the apprentice style, and start controlling things in the background even more again. Now here is my favorite part. Make sure the orc that has a few genocidal tendencies goes full sicko mode and must eventually stand trial in Pandaria. This is where you obviously time travel to another dimension so that a random other orc can come back to the main dimension and summon the Titan that you had on the back burner. Your super mega powered death plan
plan hinges on interdimensional time travel. With this once dead orc back in the main timeline, have the Titan guy come to the planet he's just been chilling ignoring for some reason, and have his army be good enough at killing, but not quite good enough to win. Now, expect these random people on the planet to do a set of weird choices that has opened a space portal from their solar system to the main base of the bad guy. Since the base is right there, they can fight the literal Titan of Death, and you must now hope they win. Because they have obviously won, the Death Titan breaks this random robot lady, and the real game begins. All the other stuff was child's play. Make the elf lady sleeper agent all evil now, and inevitably break that hat that you left on the planet for this exact moment. Congratulations, now you can pull a blonde boy into the death zone and use him to get a shiny circle from one person. And that's it, the mortals will give you the rest of them, don't worry. You've done it! You have all the Lego pieces you need to find where you left your supersuit and remake, unmake, undo, redo, bless you, Gesundheit reality.
Now, as it happens, I don't really agree with that assessment of the Jailer's plan. He always felt a lot more like an opportunist to me, taking any tiny little chance where it came and improvising to build off any events that panned out as a result. His plan seemed like an intricate four-dimensional chess move because of survivorship bias. This is the only one of thousands, maybe millions, of tiny, seemingly insignificant opportunities he took, which by chance played out and came to anything. The Jailer isn't a genius, he's just got a literal eternity to get lucky. Unfortunately, my description is 1,000 times more interesting than anything we were shown in-game though, because we don't know what his motivations are at all, and because we only find out his objective in the final moment of his death. Everything he does feels random and without context. Even the reveal that he planned to use the Forge of Souls to eventually drill into Azeroth's World Soul fell flat, because like, why? Oh yeah, you're not going to tell us why? Well, us then, I guess. The Jailer's plan is incomprehensible, silly, and most importantly, we still don't really know the reason behind any of it, which all in all made it a not very satisfying narrative experience. 3 out of 10. Obviously, Iridikron's plan probably has another 2 or 3 expansions to play out, so we can't fairly judge it as a whole yet, but already I understand it more, thanks to some really neat storytelling in Dragonflight. The Dawn of the Aspects dungeon is really unusual from a narrative point of view, because at its core, it is doing something that we've seen baddies do a million times before. We fight to overcome some perils before the baddie pops up and goes, ah ha ha ha, that's just what I wanted you to do. It was part of my plan all along. Ah ha ha ha. Arthas does this atop Icecrown. Ashara does it when she uses our Hearts of Azeroth to power up the release mechanism on the Zoth's jail. It's a staple. But what makes this dungeon so good is that it first has us play out the alternative. First time through, we actually defeat Iridikron and foil his plan. Game over, no World Soul Saga, it's done, nice one, we win. But Iridikron brought Dios and the Infinites along with him, and by focusing on Stonebro, we let Library Twink achieve their goal, which is to turn the Proto-Aspect Dormu into his infinite Murazond evil self. Something which, at least in the present moment, is the bigger danger. So we have no choice. We have to go back in time and do it all again. Stop Dios this time, but in so doing, we allow Iridikron now to get what he came here for, the essence of Galakrond and escape. And I think this is so good because it shows that Iridikron was right to fear us. We absolutely are capable of beating him. We do beat him, and he knew that. And it wasn't just a thing he said, he acted on it and mitigated for it. Teaming up with the Infinites didn't just get him into the time ways, it gave us a more immediate danger to deal with, even if it took us killing him first time to realize it. I think, personally, it's probably the best bit of storytelling WoW has ever done in a dungeon. It's really clever, and it shows Iridikron having to stay one step ahead of us, not because he's a 9,000 IQ criminal mastermind, but because he has to survive, because we are badass. It almost casts him as the underdog in his battle with us, just like he is in his battle with the Titans, or at least up until this point, because this scene is where he reveals his overall objective to us. Reveals that he's teaming up with the Void, who he's hoping to use in the same way that he used the Infinites, although to be honest, that might not be quite so simple, and sets up a through line across the next 3 expansions. Even though there is so much of Iridikron's plan to come, I feel like I understand it, even at this early stage. And when you understand a plan, that's when you can do twists. Twists when you don't understand the thing that's happening isn't really a twist, it's just more confusing. So another win for Iridididdy. A big bad has to feel impactful. Their actions have to feel like they are really messing stuff up. Otherwise, why bother stopping them? The Jailer is an interesting example of this because his impact on the lore and story was huge, touching on some of the most important characters and moments in the game's history, and it's honestly one of the reasons people hate him. Because with Zovaal, there is a strong feeling throughout the player base that his important position in the lore is not earned, and that he was basically shoehorned in as a shortcut to making him a more formidable enemy than he really was. The way that it was revealed that, in fact, he had been behind the Lich King on Azeroth made some sense in a way, and actually the new lore of Dreadlords being from the Shadowlands and working for the Jailer in helping to create the Lich King is genuinely, I think, an improvement. It never made sense to me that the Legion thought a Lich King was a great idea. And if Zovaal had just been more interesting, engaging, and impressive a character in his own right, Blizz might have even got away with that. But instead, he turned out bland as a cardboard sandwich. So the way he is inserted into older lore goes from being a potentially interesting recontextualization to what feels like lazy CV padding on the part of the writers. Like that scene in The Passion of the Christ where Jesus invents the table. Like, I'm sorry, Mel, but if your Jesus isn't impressive enough already on his own merits, then chucking that in there isn't gonna help. And then there's the Sylvanas stuff. If the Jailer had been there throughout BFA as a presence, anything at all, even a faint one, it would have been so much easier to go along with the plot in that expansion, because it would have shown early on that the Banshee hadn't just randomly gone off the rails, but was working with someone for a specific aim. But of course he couldn't appear in BFA, could he? Because I'm pretty sure that when that expansion started, the narrative team didn't even know the Jailer was working with Sylvanas behind the scenes. They hadn't even decided what he looked like until after he'd already appeared in the features trailer. So if the Jailer feels crowbarred into other people's stories, that's because he basically was. No such problem for Iridikron, who has a past and important history with the dragon aspects, but whose impact on the story is very much happening in the here and now. He is yet to do the things he will be remembered for, but at least it'll be events that we've seen him put into motion ourselves, things he has done, rather than being given credit for stuff other characters have done in the past. So even though we are all still at the very beginning of Iridikron's story here, I gotta hand him the win on this one too. Sorry, well done, congratulations. And finally, are they a dumb-looking robot? Very important section, this one. Are they a dumb-looking robot? The Jailer is, yeah, so he gets a 0 out of 10 because dumb-looking robots are dumb. Iridikron, as far as we know, not a dumb-looking robot. So, yay, another win in the bag for him. Okay, time to tally up the scores. Iridikron triumphs over the Jailer in introductions, the closest category, personality, motivation, plan, impact, and not being a dumb-looking robot, giving him a clean sweep, total domination, flawless victory. Thank goodness, frankly, it would have been kind of awkward if he hadn't, since we're stuck with him until the last Titan. But what do you think? Do you agree with my assessment of our new big bad in comparison to the failings of Zovaal? Are you happy with him being the antagonist focus for the next handful of installments? Or am I completely wrong as usual, and actually Iridikron is the worst baddie and I am the worst YouTuber, and you want to tell me exactly why? Write your mean comments. I'll read them. I'll be sad. You'll be the winner. And thank you for joining us today. If you like this video, don't thank us. Thank our patrons who give their actual real-life money to make all of our work happen. And guys, seriously, thank you, because without you, there would be a whole lot less Taliesin and Evertel. If you didn't like it, downvote the shit out of it. Remember, my name is Miss Marvel. No, my name is Taliesin from me and Evertel. Until next time, cheerio.